Welcome everyone. Today we are diving into the fascinating world of cryptography. Cryptography plays a crucial role in securing information, protecting it from unauthorized access, and ensuring privacy in the digital age. So what exactly is cryptography? At its core, cryptography, think about it as the science of transforming information into a secure format, making it unreadable to anyone who doesn't have the right key to access it. The three fundamental principles of cryptography are confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity. Confidentiality ensures the information is accessible only to authorized individuals. Integrity guarantees that the data remains unchanged and trustworthy. Authenticity confirms that the source of the information is legitimate and verifiable. Now let's talk about encryption. Encryption is the process of converting readable text known as plain text into an unreadable format called the ciphertext. This transformation is done using an encryption algorithm and a secret key. The result is a scrambled message that appears meaningless to anyone who does not have the key to decrypt it. Decryption, on the other hand, is the reverse process of encryption. It takes the ciphertext and converts it back into readable plain text using the correct key. Think of encryption as locking information in a secure vault, and decryption as using the right key to unlock and access the original message. In summary, cryptography helps protect information by ensuring three things: confidentiality, integrity, and authenticity. Encryption secures data while decryption allows authorized access. As we move forward, we'll explore different types of encryption techniques and how they are used in real-world applications. Now that we understand the basics of cryptography, let's dive deeper into how encryption works. That's where ciphers comes in. A cipher is a method or algorithm used to encrypt and decrypt information. A cipher, this method defines the rules for transforming readable data into a secure format and back again. Different ciphers use different techniques, making some stronger and more complex than the others. But a cipher alone isn't enough. A key is a crucial piece of information that works alongside the cipher to determine how the data is encrypted and decrypted. Without the correct key, even if you know the cipher, decoding the message becomes nearly impossible. Now let's talk about plain text and ciphertext. Plain text is the original readable message before encryption. It's what we want to really protect. Ciphertext, on the other hand, is the scrambled, unreadable version of the plain text that results from encryption. Only those with the right key can convert ciphertext back into plain text. In summary, encryption works by using a cipher and a key, and this is to transform plain text into ciphertext. This ensures that sensitive information remains secure, only accessible to those who have the correct decryption key. Now let's explore the two main types of ciphers used in cryptography: substitution ciphers and transposition ciphers. These techniques are the foundation of encryption and have been used for centuries to secure information. Substitution cipher replaces each letter in the plain text with another letter or symbol based on a predetermined system. One of the most well-known substitution ciphers is the Caesar cipher. Caesar cipher shifts each letter forward in the alphabet by a fixed amount. If you think of an example with a shift of 3 places, A becomes D, B becomes E, and so on. A more advanced form of substitution is the Vigenère Cipher. The Vigenère Cipher uses a keyword to apply multiple shifts throughout the message. This makes it harder to crack using simple frequency analysis. The Playfair Cipher is another substitution technique, but instead of shifting letters, it encrypts pairs of letters using a 5x5 grid based on a keyword. For example, using the keyword security, a custom grid is generated, making decryption more challenging. Unlike substitution ciphers, transposition ciphers do not change the letters themselves. Instead, they rearrange their order according to a set pattern. One common example, as you see, is the Columnar Transposition Cipher, where the message is written to a grid and then read column by column in a different order. This technique squeezes the original structure of the message. To summarize, substitution ciphers change the identity of letters, while transposition ciphers rearrange their positions. Both methods have been widely used in cryptography, sometimes even in combination. to create strong encryption systems. Up next, we will dive deeper into some key cryptographic algorithms, starting with the Playfair Cipher. Now let's take a closer look at one of the most well-known substitution ciphers, the Playfair Cipher. Developed in 1854 by Charles Wheatstone, the Playfair Cipher was named after Lord Playfair, who promoted its use. This cipher was widely used during the World War I and II for encrypting military communications due to its simplicity and effectiveness. Unlike a simple substitution cipher that replaces individual letters, the Playfair Cipher encrypts pairs of letters, making it more resistant to frequency analysis attacks. It uses a 5x5 grid built using keyword, ensuring a unique encryption scheme for each message. In the next section, we'll break down how the Playfair Cipher works step by step and see how messages are encoded and decoded using this method. Now let's begin the encryption process using the Playfair Cipher. The first step is to create the 5x5 Playfair matrix using a keyword. For this example, we'll use the keyword Northwest. So we place the key letters into the 5x5 grid first, but we must remove any duplicates. If you look at Northwest, you will see that the letter T, the last one in the key, is repetitive. It's a duplicate, so we don't include this one, we remove it. Then what we will do, we will fill the remaining letters of the alphabets excluding J, which is combined with I. This to allow it to fit in the 25-letter grid. Now if you look at the matrix, we have created the 5x5 grid with the keyword Northwest, and by adding the remaining alphabets, by removing all the duplicates, and remember combining the letters I and J. Here we ensure that each letter appears only once in the grid. This structured matrix will serve as the foundation for encrypting our plain text message in the next step. Now that the matrix is ready, we can proceed with encoding the message. Now that we have our Playfair matrix ready, let's move to the next step, preparing the plain text for encryption. First, remove the spaces, and now we need to look into how the Playfair Cipher works. The Play Cipher works by encrypting letter pairs, so we need to divide the message into two letter groups. However, there are a few rules that we need to follow. If a pair contains duplicate letters, then you need to insert X between them to separate these two letters. If the total number of letters is odd, then you need to append by X at the end to make a complete pair. So for example, if you look at TT in the word attack, we need to insert an extra letter, typically X, to separate them. Now that our plain text is properly formatted, then we are ready to apply the Playfair Cipher encryption rules and transform it into a cipher text. As you see on the screen, these are the new pairs of the text. So we took the TH first, and then EA, and then we came to TT, which is the same letter. So what we did, we added X, padding the first T, and then we continue from the second T, forming the pairs TA, CK, WI, and then we come to another duplicate where we have LL. So we do padding, so we'll have LX, and then LS, and then TA, RT, AT, DA, and last WN. So this is the rearranged plain text as per the Playfair Cipher, and now we are ready to move on to the next step. The Playfair Cipher follows three main encryption rules depending on the positioning of the letter pairs within the 5x5 matrix. So now if you look, we have the 5x5 matrix from the previous step. Now it's the time to start the encryption. We need to look at the rules. So we have the plain text ready as pairs of letters, and now we'll look at the first rule, which is the same row rule. If the two letters are on the same row, replace each letter with the letter to its right. We have the same column rule. If both letters are in the same column, each letter is replaced by the one directly below it. If a letter is at the bottom, it wraps around to the top of the column. Different row and column rule. If two letters are in different row and column, then replace each letter by another letter on its same row but in the column of the other letter. Let's see how this works by looking at the plain text and encrypting one pair at a time. So if you look at the plain text, TH, and let's do this one at a time. Let me bring the pointer because we might need this for illustration. So now if I go and I bring the laser pointer, so now this one I'm looking at the TH. So let's see how this is done. So now I'm looking for the ciphertext. TH is the first pair. So now if I go and look in the matrix, you will find out that T and H are in the same row. T and H are in the same row. According to the same row rule, what do we need to get? We need to get to the letter to its right. So to replace T, what is the letter to its right is H. And then to replace H, what is the letter to its right? Since it's at the end of the row, then I need to wrap around to the start of the row, so it will be N. So now the new cipher for T will be H, and for H will be N. So the new cipher, or the cipher text will be is HN. Now if we look at another pair, EA, and let's see where they are positioned within the matrix. So I have EA, you look at E and A, they are in the same row. So I'm still using the same row rule, so I'm getting the letter to its right. So for E I'm getting S, for A I'll be getting B. So SB is the new, is the cipher text. And then if I look at the next pair, TX, then TX, where are they located? Are they in the same row? No, they are not. Are they in the same column? No, they are in different columns. So I'll be using the third rule, different row and column rule. What this rule says, I'm looking for TX. T is the first letter, so I'll look at T, and I will go and get the letter in T row. Where is the row of T? This is the row of T. And then I'll find the letter where it intersects with the column of X. So I look at the row of T, and my substitute letter will be where it intersects with the column of X. So in this case, it's R. And then I'll look at X, and I'll see the row of X, where does it meet the column of T or intersects with the column of T? At Y. So my new or cipher text will be RY. RY is the cipher text. I use the different row and column rule. Now if I look at TA, I'll look at this cipher, I'll look at the location, I'll find TA are in the same column, so now I'll use the same column rule. What it says, you get the letter below it. So if I have T first, what is below T is A. And then A, what is below A is G. So the cipher text will be AG. Then if I look at CK, let's see where is it located, CK in the matrix. CK, same column rule. So below C will be K, and below K is U. So the cipher text is KU. Now we look at WI, and you can see they are in different row and column. So in this case, if I'm looking for W, I look at the row of W, and where does it meet the column of I? At B, so that will be the new letter. And then if I look at I, the row of I, where does it meet W, which the column of W? At C, so that will be BC. And then I look at LX, find the location of LX in the matrix. They are in different row and different columns, so again I'll use different row and column rule. If I look at L, the row of L, where does it meet the column of X is at M, and the row of X, where does it meet the column of L? At V, so it will be MV, the new text, and so forth. If you look at LS, that's the different row and column, the same concept, so we have ME. Then if you look at TA, the same column rule, and then we look at RT, and so forth until WN, where we get the remaining cipher text. And here where you can see the cipher text generated using these three rules. WN, if you look, the same column, so we got the letter below it. So for W, below it is C, and for M, below N is W, so that's why we got CW. And that's the cipher text where we got the Playfair encryption complete. So now that we have encrypted our message using the Playfair Cipher, let's go through the decryption process to retrieve the original plain text. Decrypting Playfair Cipher follows similar rules to encryption, but in reverse. Here's how it works. First, we have from step 1 the matrix using the keyword northwest, and here we have the cipher text that we obtained from the previous step. And now what we need to do is just follow the decryption rules for the Playfair Cipher. As I said, it's just a reverse process, so we have the same row rule, and that here in this case for decryption, if the two letters are on the same row, we'll replace each letter with the letter to its left. If you remember with the encryption, we did take the letter to its right. Now it's the reverse process, so we'll take the letter to its left. For the same column rule, we'll take the letter above it. What we did with the encryption, we took the letter below. So now we're reversing the process, we take the letter above it. And for the last rule, different row and column rule, it's the same. So if two letters are in different row and column, then replace each letter by another letter on its same row, but in the column of the other letter. So now if you look at the cipher text, and we need to get the plain text. I put the plain text here, and I need to get my laser pointer again. So let's take a few examples and see how the decryption works as per these rules. If I see HN, let's start with the first pair in the cipher text, and I want to find the plain text. All I need is this matrix and this set of rules. So HN, I need to find where they are located. So I look at the N and H, they are in the same row. So according to the same row rule, we need to get the letter to its left. So for H, what is to its left is T, and for N, what's to its left, if we wrap around, it will be H. So TH is the plain text. If I take AG, if you look at A and G, they are in the same column. As per the decryption, same column rule, we take the letter above it. So for A, if you look at A, what is above A is T. So if you look in the same column rule, above A is T and above G is A. And that's why we got TA is the plain text for AG. If I take ME, let's look at ME. M is here in this row. I don't see an E in the same row. Do I have an E in the same column? There is no E. So M is here and E is somewhere else, which is there. So here we need to use the different row and column rule. So if I look at M, I need to go into the row of M and I find the letter in that intersects with the column of E. So that will be L. So for M, it will be L. For E, I look at the row of E and then I get the letter in the column of M. So that will be S. And that's why for ME we got LS. This is how we got the plain text using this cipher algorithm. So in summary, Playfair Cipher decryption follows the same principles. So think about it. It's the same principles as encryption, but in reverse. So by following the specific rules we can successfully recover that original message from the ciphertext. The Vigenère Cipher was first described in the 16th century and remained one of the strongest encryption techniques for centuries. Unlike simple substitution ciphers, which use a shift or a fixed shift, the Vigenère Cipher introduces a more complex polyalphabetic substitution method. This cipher significantly strengthens encryption by using keyword to apply multiple shifts throughout the text, making it much harder to break using frequency analysis. Because of this, it was historically referred to as the unbreakable cipher. In the next section, we'll break down how the Vigenère Cipher works step by step and see how messages are encrypted and decrypted using this method. First, we begin with our plain text message, attack now and our key east. Since the Vigenère Cipher requires a key of equal length to the plain text, we repeat the key until it matches the message length. This forms our key stream. So if you look here, attack now, so what we did prepare the plain text and the key stream in step 1. So attack now, and then we did repeat the key east, east, and then E. So we have the same length, plain text and key stream. Now we'll use the Vigenère matrix to encrypt. This is the matrix on the right. We have 3 simple rules here to look at, and these are the row corresponds to the key. So if you look at the rows from A to Z, the rows correspond to the key. If you look at the columns, and this is the second rule, they correspond to the plain text. So column A, B, C to Z, these correspond to the plain text. The intersection between the rows and the columns, this is the ciphertext. It's as simple as this. So let's see how we do encryption using the Vigenère Cipher. Now if you look at the first key and plain text, so we have A, this is the plain text, and E is the key. So what we need to do, we look at the row E, that's for the key, remember, and we look at column A, that's corresponding to the plain text, and then we find the intersection. So the intersection is E in this case, so that's my ciphertext. Remember, the intersection is the ciphertext. And then if we look at another pair, I have TA, so A is the key, T is the plain text. We need to look for the intersection. The intersection in this case is T, so that's my ciphertext. And then so on, I look at TS, so this is the next pair. I have S is the key. If you look here at S, this is the key, and T is the plain text. So where do they intersect? That will be at L is the intersection, so that's my ciphertext. And so on, if you look at AT, and then we get the intersection, that's T, and then we look for CE. E is the key, so we look at row E, and C is the plain text. We look at column C. They intersect at G, so G is my ciphertext. KA the same. We look at the row for the key A and the column for the plain text K. They intersect at K. We bring K. This is my ciphertext. We look at NS, the same, and then we look for the intersection F. We bring this forward, and then we look at OT. So T is the key. We go to the row T, and then O is the plain text. We go to column O, and then we get ciphertext, which is the intersection between the row and the column. That's H in this case. And then last we have WE. E is the key. We go to row E and column W, and then we get the intersection. In this case, it's A, and that's my ciphertext in this scenario. So here how we do the Vigenère Cipher encryption. So if I want to recall, we just do the plain text and the key. We get them and prepare the key stream. Make sure they are of the same length. That's why we keep repeating the key until we ensure the key stream and the plain text are of the same length. And then we need the Vigenère matrix to encrypt. And remember the three rules. The row corresponds to the key, the column corresponds to the plain text, the intersection is the ciphertext. And what we do, we just repeat this process for each letter, applying the correct key letter from the key stream. After applying the Vigenère Cipher rules, our final ciphertext is, as you see on the screen, the ETL TGKFHA. Now that we have encrypted using the Vigenère Cipher, let's walk through the decryption process to retrieve the original plain text. So first we need to prepare the ciphertext and the key stream, and then we use the Vigenère Cipher or matrix to decrypt. So let's look at the ciphertext. So what we do here, let me bring the laser pointer. So we have the ciphertext. I'll just prepare it along with the key stream like we did before in the encryption process, but this time I'm using the ciphertext and I'm using the same key. Remember, we're doing symmetric encryption, so we use the same key for encryption, is the same for decryption, and then we need to follow certain rules which are the same. The row corresponds to key, column corresponds to plain text, the intersection is the ciphertext. The only difference with decryption is the information we have. With the encryption, we got the key and we got the plain text, if you remember. Now with the decryption, we don't have the plain text. This is what we're looking for. We only have the key and we have the ciphertext. So I'll be looking at two main things here. I'll be looking at the row, which is the key, and I'll be looking for the intersection or the ciphertext, and then this will allow me to find the plain text. If you think about it, it's like a reversing process of what we did when we did the encryption. So let's take, for example, the first ciphertext and the first key. So, for example, we have EA, E and E. This is the key and this is the ciphertext. So what we need to do, if the key is E, so I need to go to row E. Remember, the row corresponds to the key, so that's E. And then I need to go and find in that row the ciphertext, because this is the ciphertext in this case. So if I'm going to the key E, which is row E, then I go and find the ciphertext A. Where is it? Where does it reside? In which column? Column A. So this is my plain text, so it's A. And then I take another example just to make it clear. If I look at TA, so A is the key. So it's all about the key here. I look at the row of A, and then I go find the ciphertext, which is T. T is here. Where is it located? Which is column? In column T. So T is my plain text. Remember, the column corresponds to the plain text. Let's do LS. So S is the key, so I'll go to S row, and then I'll go and find L in this row, and L is in which column? It's in column T. So in this case, my plain text is T, and so on. So if I look at TT, I will be looking at the row T, and then I'll go find T in that row. Where is it? It's in column A, so A is the plain text. Same for GE, it's C, KA is K, FS is N. Let's look at HT. So the key is T. So key is T means what? I need to go and look at row T. Where is row T? It's here. And then I need to find the ciphertext, which is H. Where is H? I'll go and find H. H is in which column? Column O. So this is my plain text. And then I'll look at AE. So E is the row, which is the key. So I'll go to row E, and then I'll go find A in this row. So A is located there. Which column? It's in column W. So that's my plain text. And if you look here, you can see attack now, which is the plain text that we did encrypt in the previous step. So after reversing the Vigenère Cipher encryption process, this is the final decrypted plain text is attack now. Now let's explore another classic encryption method, the Columnar Transposition Cipher. Unlike substitution ciphers that replace letters, transposition ciphers work by rearranging the existing letters of the message in a structured way. The Columnar Transposition Cipher is one of the most well-known transposition methods used in cryptography. This cipher was widely used in historical military communications because it provides a simple yet effective way to obscure messages. By scrambling the order of the letters rather than replacing them, it makes decryption more challenging without the correct key. Now let's walk through the encryption process using Columnar Transposition Cipher. This method encrypts the message by rearranging its letters based on a predetermined key. First, step 1, we need to create the grid. The length of the key determines the number of columns in the grid. In this example, we are using a key night. Night is of length 5. So you can see 5 characters or 5 letters in the word night. So this will determine the number of columns. So in this case, we have 5 columns. So what we'll do first, we write the key, which is the foundation, because it determines the number of columns that we will be using. So we have 5 columns. Now what we will do, we write the plain text in the grid. The plain text is written row by row. So we'll start writing the plain text, LEVE, leave no trace, row by row. And then when we reach the end of the plain text and doesn't perfectly fill the grid, then it can be padded with null characters. Like you see here, I'm using X for padding as a null character. And this is how we formulate the grid. So if you look at the columnar transposition cipher, there are first 2 steps to follow. We need to create the grid. The length of the key determines the number of columns, and then we write the plain text row by row, and then don't forget the padding if it doesn't perfectly fill the grid. And this is how our grid looks after placing the plain text, as you see on the screen. Now that we have organized our plain text into a grid, let's complete the encryption process by rearranging the columns and extracting the ciphertext. So now step 3, we need to rearrange the columns. The columns, they are rearranged based on the alphabetical order of the key's letters. Our key night is sorted alphabetically as GHINT. The columns are now reordered according to this sequence. Let's do the reordering according to this sequence. So if I bring my laser pointer again, where is my laser pointer? It's there. So this is the first column now according to the alphabetical order. So this G column needs to move to become the first column. So now this is the first movement, and then according to the new key, which is sorted alphabetically, we have H. So the column H, this needs to move to become the second, and then we'll look at I next. So the column of I will move to become the third column, and then we got N. So N will move and become the fourth column, and T is the last column 5. So T will move to column 5. In this case, it's in the same location. In different scenarios, it might be somewhere else. So now if you look at the newly created matrix, what we did change the location of the columns. So we did shift the location of columns. We did rearrange the columns. How did we rearrange the columns? That's based on the key. So we look at the key, and then we sort the letters of the key alphabetically, and then we shift the columns accordingly. So now the scrambled message can be securely transmitted, ensuring that only someone with the correct key and the column arrangement can decrypt it back to its original form. But how do we read the message? We need to look at the rearrange matrix, and then we read column by column. So this is the trick here. So when you need to extract the ciphertext, what you need to do is we need to read column by column. So ATX will come first, and then we'll have VRX, and then we'll have EOE, and then LNC, and finally EAX. So this is the cipher text. To recap, all we need to do first, we rearrange the columns, and this is done by looking at the key, and then we sort it alphabetically, as we see here, GHINT, and here what we did in the new matrix. And then we need to read the ciphertext, or we extract the ciphertext by reading column by column. So ATX, VRX, EOE, LNC, and EAX. So now we'll look at the columnar transposition cipher, the decryption process. So now we have the cipher text from what we did previously when we used the encryption, and we're still using the same key. It has to be the same key we use for encryption, the same key we use for decryption. First step for decryption using columnar transposition cipher will determine the grid dimensions. So since the key night has 5 letters, the cipher text is written in 5 columns. So I know I have 5 columns, but what I need to determine here is the number of rows. So the length of the cipher text is 15 characters. And since I have 5 columns, so what we need to do, we divide the number or the length of the cipher text, which is 15 characters, we divide it by the length of the key, which is the number of columns. So we have 15 divided by 5 equals 3. So here we know that we have 3 rows in our grid. So here we have the grid created. I have the first row, this is for the key, and then I have 3 rows as per this calculation for the cipher text. And then what we will do, we'll determine the column order. We sort the key night alphabetically, GHINT. Remember, always the decryption is like a reverse process for what we did previously. So now we need to sort the key night alphabetically, and this one we need to put into the grid, the GHINT. If you remember when we did the encryption a few minutes ago, this was the last step we did. So now I'm just reversing the process. I'm moving backward to the last step I did in the encryption, and this is what I had at the time. And then what I do, I will reconstruct the columns by placing the cipher text into the grid. But how? By filling columns in the correct order. You remember when we did the encryption, we did read the cipher text how? By reading columns. So now I need to put the cipher text as columns. So ATX goes first as a column, and then VRX, that's second column, and then so on, the EOE, and then I got the LNC, and then EAX. So remember when you do decryption, I look at the cipher text and I will fill columns. So ATX, ATX, I'm filling columns. VRX, VRX, and so forth to the EAX at the end. So I'm filling columns. So now what we need to do, we rearrange the columns. So the columns are rearranged based on the original order of the key's letter. So now we need to rearrange the order back as per the original key, which is night. So if you look at the new matrix now, so what will happen? N column should come first, so we'll bring it first because we need to rearrange based on the original key, night. So N will come first, and then we'll have the I column moving next, and then we have the G column, and then we have the H column, and then we have the T column. So that's the new rearrangement based on the original order of the key letters night. If you remember the encryption, we're simply just reversing the process. So it's the opposite of what we did when we encrypted using columnar transposition cipher. This is now the new matrix with the rearranged columns, and now you need to read row by row. So extract the plain text, read row-wise to retrieve the plain text, leave no trace, and here our plain text, and you can see the padding at the end. By following this process, we really managed to successfully decrypt the columnar transposition cipher and recover the original message. As we conclude our journey through classical cryptographic techniques, let's reflect on the key concepts we have covered. We explored 3 fundamental encryption techniques that have played significant role in cryptography's history. Playfair Cipher, substitution cipher that encrypts pairs of letters using a 5 by 5 matrix, making frequency analysis more difficult. Vigenère Cipher, this substitution cipher that shifts letters based on repeating keyword, significantly strengthening security against simple attacks. Columnar Transposition Cipher, transposition cipher that rearranges letters in structured grid, altering the order while maintaining the original characters. While these classical ciphers have been largely replaced by modern encryption methods, they laid the foundation for today's cryptographic systems. Understanding them helps us appreciate the evolution of encryption and its role in securing data. As cyber threats continue to evolve, encryption remains a cornerstone of data security. Modern cryptographic techniques such as AES and RSA build upon the principles of these classical ciphers to protect sensitive information in this digital world. Thank you for joining this introduction to cryptography. Up next, we'll dive into more advanced encryption methods and how they power modern cybersecurity solutions. If you enjoyed this video and found it informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest cybersecurity content. See you in the next one.